Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. I'm not a fan of drifting and wouldn't want to hear that as my neighbor, but I'd respect your property rights, OP, and introduce myself and create a relationship so that lines of communication are open and we can discuss things like adults if needed. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Neighbor is big mad about my racetrack. Okay, so it finally happened today. Last spring, my family finally moved into our dream home. We bought the property years ago, and through the pandemic, finally were able to get our dream home built. The property is essentially in the middle of nowhere, with the nearest neighbor being about a mile down the road. On the few hundred acres we have, I decided to do my best at recreating some professional drift tracks from Driftmaster's European Championship and Formula Drift. Everything's up to code and greenlit by the county. We plan to open a drift school on the property in the future. We've also built 6 cars to 800 horsepower, primarily using 5.3-liter Chevy V8s. The cars are an E36 BMW, E46 BMW, 96 Silvia, 13 BRZ, 15 Mustang, and 16 MX-5. I list all this because it's loud and smoky here on the farm a lot. And for the past 7 or 8 months, we've had absolutely no issues, minus a trespasser destroying his car and our shed. Today that changed. I have some family in town for the holiday, and among them are my cousins, male 39, and his son 17. Having grown up drifting with my cousin, was super hyped to take his boy out and slide around the track, so we grabbed a couple of the track cars and cut loose. About 40 minutes into it, and as we were swapping out tires, I hear sirens and step out of the garage. Coming down my driveway are 2 fire engines, a couple of police cars, and an SUV. They all park and hop out, and I ask how I can help them. They ask about a fire along with noise, to which I explain the drift cars and motion to all the racetrack around the property, show them my county documents which allow for the tracks, etc. At this point, my apparent neighbor, male, 50s, I've never met, starts yelling about the noise and how I should be arrested. The sergeant, who had shown up with the gaggle of responders, stopped him and informed him that we aren't doing anything illegal, and so long as we keep our noise to before 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 p.m. on weekends, we're within the law. Neighbor called us a bunch of degenerate inbred a-holes before turning and cussing out the sergeant. We specifically chose this property to build on as it's zoned commercial and automotive on top of residential. The fire department left almost as soon as they arrived. After the neighbor had his meltdown, he was trespassed by PD. A couple of the police hung around and watched us hit a few laps. I offered to take them out and even teach them if they would like, free of charge. Then they left too. Am I the jerk for building a giant race facility at my home, which is located in the most appropriate area one can find? Update. Neighbor just came back to knock on my door and tell me that there will no longer be racing cars on our property, threatened to destroy the vehicles, and was all but foaming at the mouth. Police came, he called them, and they immediately arrested him for trespassing. This guy's going to be a great neighbor. And our second story. If you don't like it, you can quit. When I was younger, during the late 90s, I was a server at a pizza chain with a red roof. At the time, this place had dine-in service. We had a GM, Ray. Ray was a nice guy, but he was better on the business, financial side of the restaurant than managing employees. People generally got their work done, but in retrospect, everybody that worked under him was young, and we probably didn't give him the respect he was due. Eventually, Barb showed up. She was an assistant manager from a nearby store that closed. Barb wasn't like Ray. It was like she was hired to come in and crack a whip over all of us. Never a please or thank you for anything. Forget if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. If you have time to lean, you have time to clean out the walk-in fridge and rinse it from floor to ceiling. On Fridays and Saturdays, the restaurant didn't close until 1 a.m. These were generally the busiest nights. However, I was 17 or 18 at the time, and I walked to and from work. My parents said that under no circumstances did they want me working past 11 p.m. They didn't want me walking home after 1 a.m. and risking being hit by a drunk driver or some other idiot out there at those hours. I'd already been attacked by a homeless person one Friday night that year. This limitation was written into my file by Ray. We had several other teen servers with similar scheduling limitations, but it was usually okay. Things started dying down at 11, and the adult servers were happy to take all the late tips themselves. One Friday, it's 9:45, and we're still swamped. Mean old Barb's managing. My tables are mostly wrapping up, so I inform Barb I need to come off the floor if she expected me to do any side work that night. She says to me that I need to keep serving and to do my side work, and I can't leave until the side work is finished. I remind her that I must be out the door at 11 p.m. If I'm not, there's a high likelihood my parents will make me quit this job, especially after being attacked by that homeless person. It's just too busy. If I take more tables, there's no way I can do side work. Plus, I just have to hand off those tables to the adult servers anyway, so there's really no point in me taking more tables. Barb blows up at me. She starts screaming loud enough for customers to hear about how kids these days are a bunch of babies and how she hates that helicopter parents won't let their kids do real work anymore. After that tirade, she says, "You have work that needs to be done. You need to stay and do it. I don't give a damn what time it is. If you don't like it, you can quit." For some reason, her saying it like that felt like a smack to the forehead. I don't like this job. There are plenty of other minimum wage jobs I could be doing that would work with my schedule limitations. I'm just a teen doing this job for scratch money. Screw her. I reach into my server apron and move all my tips into my pants pocket. I untie the apron and place it on the front counter. Her eyes get huge, and all I remember coming from her was this screech of, "What? Oh, what are you doing?" I tell her I'm doing what she said. I don't like it, so I'm quitting. Cue more screeching. She's so loud the entire restaurant can hear her. At that point, I just turn around and walk out, letting the door of the restaurant close and muffle her screeching. I make it home before 11 p.m. Ray calls me the next day to get my side of the story. I explain everything. He says he understands and backs me up that she shouldn't have tried to make me stay. He asks if I could at least come in and work the Saturday dinner rush, but I told him I wouldn't set foot in that restaurant if Barb was there. He said that Barb was managing that night, so I chuckled and said, "Well, that's your problem." A week later, I get another phone call from Ray. Over the course of that week, Barb yelled at 2 other teen employees of the restaurant for similar reasons, causing one to quit. She apparently also nearly got into a fight with an adult server because she called that server a druggy bee and said she was going to slap the taste out of her mouth. Barb specifically called her that because she knew the server was in recovery for opioid addiction. The final nail in Barb's coffin? 2 customers called to complain that their carry-out pizzas appeared to have cigarette ashes on them. Managers usually work the register at this store, which meant they also cut and boxed to-go orders. Apparently on less busy nights, Barb would smoke while behind the counter. She was caught on video multiple times and one day with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth as she cut pizzas. Suffice to say, Barb got fired. Ray was calling everyone back that quit to see if they wanted to come back. Me, I declined. I'd already found a gravy gig working at an antique mall. And our last story. Entitled neighbor uses driveway without permission. My fiance and I purchased our home a few years ago, and our neighbor introduced herself shortly after we moved in. She seemed like a nice, elderly woman who appeared to have custody of her young grandson. We had no issues until her middle-aged son moved in. This guy always yelled at the little boy and just generally acted like a jerk. He drove a small, beat-up truck that leaked oil. His mother has a nice, long, double-car driveway and didn't want oil stains on the concrete, so she had him park in the side yard next to our house. It was right outside of our kitchen window and kind of an eyesore, but it's her property, so whatever. We assumed that her son would drive through their yard to his parking spot, but apparently that was too inconvenient. Instead, he decided to back into our driveway and through our yard to get to his spot. We were always at work when he did this, but we caught it on our camera. Our driveway is gravel and isn't in the best of shape. Her son would take off too fast and throw gravel everywhere. After a couple days, he started to leave a rut, so my fiancé went over there to ask him to stop. The mother answered the door and seemed annoyed by our request. Her son parked in their driveway after this, so we assumed that was the end of it. Well, while I was at work the following Friday, I received a motion notification from one of our cameras. I checked it, and sure enough, I see her son using our driveway again. After work, I passive-aggressively decide to park my car at the end of our driveway. The entrance is only big enough for one car, and there's a deep ditch on both sides, so I knew her son couldn't get out that way. We were planning on staying in for the weekend, so wouldn't be moving it again until Monday morning. On Saturday, we were doing yard work out front, and the son came out with his dog. He gave us a dirty look but didn't say anything. I figured he got the message. We woke up around noon on Sunday to a bunch of notifications from our doorbell camera. I pull up the videos and see the neighbor's son absolutely fuming. He rang our doorbell 5 times and stood on our porch for 20 minutes. The whole time he was throwing his hands up and muttering about needing to leave. He actually expected us to get up, go outside in the pouring rain, and move my car so he could use our driveway to get out. About a week later, the jerk hit our car and it was caught on camera. We sued and got a pretty good compensation, and he never bothered us again. OMG, these entitled people. Just because you let them once doesn't mean you let them forever. If you'd already told him nicely to stop, they should have stopped. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.